today. Thank you everybody for joining us today for this very important update.
Thank you, Charlene. First of all, thank you everybody that's joining for this evening. We know y'all have many different things that are going on. We all know that everybody is dealing with this quarantine situation, but we felt that it was truly important to bring everybody together so that we could talk about this issue. This is a human rights issue that we're looking at, where we have a lot of our brothers and sisters who are still locked up in many of these different areas, but they're not being given the right care. They're not being given the right precautions. They are not being safeguarded in the way that is really deserving of them being human beings. And from the clergy perspective, Faith in New Jersey, as well as many of the different partners and organizations, we want to make sure we're calling attention to this, because it's our responsibility to take care of our brothers, our responsibility to take care of our sisters. And we can't just continue to only look out for ourselves, make sure we have hand sanitizer, make sure that we have toilet paper, and not make sure that our brothers and sisters who are still in these penitentiaries, that they're not being cared for. We got a lot of things that are going on, and during this call, we really want to talk about it, but we have to lift this up. We have to make sure that people know we can't just let this go silently. This is a human rights issue. We have to have everybody working together on this so that we can make sure that these human beings, these children of God, are being taken care of. And I'm committed to do that with Faith in New Jersey, with Charlene, with all of y'all. So thank you again. And we want to just make sure that we can come together and we can accomplish something. God bless you all.
My name is Anton Henshaw. This issue of what's actually happening inside the carceral state right now is very dear to my heart. It hurts me. A very dear friend of mine has died from COVID-19 while in Trenton State Prison. He's actually in Rahway State Prison, and he got transferred. And they've kept it under wraps, and it's hurt me real bad. His brother Farrakhan, very decent, loving, caring brother, always sharing. And I grew up in prison. I'm not a nonviolent offender. I am a violent offender. I've served 30 years of a mandatory minimum sentence in the state of New Jersey from a juvenile. And I wasn't given a death sentence, but I'm looking at COVID-19 now as a death sentence. And for those that are still trapped inside of this nonsense, this crazy stuff, it hurts to see that the courts didn't sentence them to death, but because they're in incarceration, a lot of my good friends that I grew up with and around could potentially die if we don't do something. And I can't sit idly by and not do this. I've been home for a short time. I'm currently a graduate student at Rutgers Camden, and I advocate for those that are still inside, but I also work with youth. And it's even worse for the youth and women right now. And no one is speaking out, no one is saying it. They're playing this non-violent versus violent game with lies. And that's not what we're here to do. They've already been judged. We're not here to rejudge what's already been judged. And we can't continue to allow this dichotomy to decide who lives or dies. The judge and the sentences were already determined. But we're talking about why are our youth are still incarcerated, and they're at the predisposition stage of their sentence or their court proceedings. The women that are there, they're being housed in dorm-like settings for this stuff to run rampant, and nobody is saying anything. There is no dignity for us anymore. And as you'll see as we go through our program, that we'll begin to speak and share stories with people who were formerly incarcerated, that people that are currently incarcerated, people that are in ICE detention centers, family and loved ones, to get this message out that this is serious. No one deserves to die over this, because people are afraid of making a human rights decision to say that we need to decarcerate and start letting people out safely, and that will not be a public safety threat or a public health threat, despite what they've been charged with. So let's go to Erica Mars. Let's see if we can do that. We'll start with her husband was detained by ICE, and COVID is running rapid in that. We don't hear anything about that. Those things are being silenced for absolutely no reason. And what do we do with them? So she's going to share what's going on with her husband and what's happening with her family. And we'll try. Erica?
Hola, mi nombre es Erika. A mi esposo lo agarraron el 16 de marzo y se lo llevó la policía de inmigración.
Solo para traducir, hi, my name is Erica. My husband was taken on March 14th, taken by ICE.
Las condiciones en que los tienen a ellos son bien inhumanas. Es horrible ese lugar, dice mi esposo, porque no le dan de comer. En la mañana solamente le dan una cajita de cereal de la chiquita que es para bebé, una cajita de leche.
The conditions are really, really inhumane. They barely give them anything to eat. In the morning, they just give them a tiny little box of cereal, like the size of a baby, and just a little bit of milk.
Para el almuerzo solo le dan un hot dog.
For lunch, they just give them one hot dog.
Y para la cena solo una galleta y un juguito también les dan.
And for dinner, they just give them a cookie and juice.
El lunes le llevaron un sándwich para comer y no servía.
On Monday, I sent him a sandwich, money for a sandwich to eat, and they didn't even give it to him.
Estaba como vencido eso, como chuco, como algo que ya estaba pasado de tiempo.
¿Azúcar? ¿Cómo así?
Estaba pasado de tiempo, que ya no servía.
They said it was past due and they couldn't serve it anymore.
Les hacían la limpieza, pero ahora que entró el coronavirus, ellos tratan de limpiar. Ellos tratan de la manera de limpiar porque no hay nadie que les haga la limpieza.
They're trying really hard to clean themselves, and during Corona, it's really hard because they don't give them anything to clean themselves with.
No tienen atención médica, no tienen atención médica. La atención médica que hay en ese lugar es muy mala.
They don't have medical attention. The very little that they have is really horrible.
Y son demasiados presos, demasiados. Y si quieren una cita con el médico, tienen que hacerla por lo menos unos 5 días antes de que quieran ver al médico.
And there's so many people incarcerated. I think she told me earlier 40 people in one dorm, that if you want to see a medical expert, you have to schedule it 5 days in advance.
Son demasiados los presos que hay ahí porque en una sola celda hay 40 personas.
In one cell, there's 40 people.
Están como 35 enfermos y los tienen junto con los que están buenos y ya les dijeron que los separen y no los quieren separar.
There are 35 people that are sick right now during Corona, and they won't separate them from the rest of the population. They say they want to be separated, but they won't let them.
El que ya se está muriendo del coronavirus, sí, lo apartan y lo van a dejar a una celda solo para que se muera solo porque atención médica no les dan.
For the people that are dying of coronavirus, they separate them and put them in one single cell, solitary confinement, and let them die because there's not any medical attention.
Si ellos quieren comida, uno les tiene que enviar dinero por medio de una aplicación. Uno les manda, dependiendo lo que uno pueda, 25, 50, hasta $200 para que ellos puedan comprar comida. Por lo menos a mi esposo, el primo de mi esposo y yo le estamos mandando dinero para que él compre su comida, porque la comida de ahí que les dan, no les dan comida, y si les dan comida, les dan poquito.
If you want your loved one to eat inside, you have to send them money because they're not getting fed enough inside. You have to send them money for the meals that you want them to eat, and they get it every Wednesday. And so me and my uncle are sending the money, but it's really hard on us.
Hay un día a la semana que les dan de comer, que les llevan comida, perdón. Hay un día a la semana que les llevan comida, que es el día miércoles, que piden ellos comida para toda la semana, pero la tienen que pagar ellos allí.
On Wednesday is the one day that they bring the food that family members have sent them money for, that they can go get that food and go get that money, just that one Wednesday.
Para llamar a su familia también tienen que comprar tarjeta ahí porque no les dan minutos para llamar. Mi esposo desde el lunes no me había llamado y apenas anoche me llamó 10 minutos.
If they want to call, you have to send them calling cards and pay for that. I've only been able to talk from last week to my husband for 10 minutes. Y Erika, solo para terminar, ¿cómo se sientes en este tiempo ahorita?
Yo me siento terrible, me siento muy mal. Yo tengo depresión y ansiedad me dio.
I feel really horrible right now. I feel really bad. I've got depression and anxiety right now.
Mis tareas en el hogar bajaron. Yo me siento desesperada y me siento muy triste. Y más todo lo que mi esposo está pasando en ese lugar, porque es terrible ese lugar. Es muy frío.
I feel really, really depressed just thinking about everything that my husband is going through, incarcerated with ICE. It's something I hate to think about is how cold it is for him in there. Gracias, Erika. ¿Algo más que quieres decir?
Sí, tengo 3 hijos. El grande tiene autismo. Tengo el de en medio que él no puede hablar y mi niña que tiene asma. Yo estoy desesperada, no sé qué hacer. Aparte de eso, tengo la pena de mi esposo, cómo lo tratan de mal. Si a él me lo llegan a deportar, yo no sé qué voy a hacer sola, ¿me entiende?
I have 3 children here alone. The biggest one has autism, the second one can't speak, and the third one that's only 3 years old has asthma and she's hooked up to a machine. If they deport him, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Brendan, what facility is he in?
¿Cuál facilidad? ¿Cuál cárcel?
Está en el condado de Essex. La cárcel se llama Essex County, Correctional, Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah, so Essex County Correctional Facility. Gracias, Erika. Gracias para todo. Gracias. Muchísimas
Gracias y Dios les bendiga a todos.
Thank you so much and God bless everyone.
One of our speakers, Jackie, who was formerly incarcerated and recently released, from Edna Mayhem. And Jackie, whatever you want to share, please let us know what's going on in there.
Hi, my name is Jackie. For those of you who don't know, at 18 years old, I made a mistake and it wound me up in prison for 12 years. I was recently released at the age of 30. I was pregnant when I was in, so I tried to do everything I could while on the inside to focus on how I was going to change the narrative of my life and make things better for me and for my son and become a better person. So I acquired multiple trade skills while on the inside. I obtained my associate's degree, and moreover, I was working towards my bachelor's degree in criminal justice, which I'm working on completing now. While on the inside, the conditions were horrible, specifically with medical. Getting medical attention was such a horrible, it was so horrible. Even like for something small, it was hard to get things done, or, you know, you would have to be on the brink of death to get anything done in there. They would give you Tylenol or Motrin and some Zyrtec and send you on your way for anything. So it was hard to get anything done. So I only can imagine how things are on the inside now. And talking to people, I recently talked to somebody who's still on the inside now. I'm in contact with people, and they said they're not able to get masks or exercise proper social distancing in there because of the close quarters of where they live. And then the people who are symptomatic are put in solitary confinement in a unit, and they're in cells for 24 hours a day. They're not able to come out until they're feeling better. And they're sending them to the hospitals, but only when things are really, really bad. So, yeah, that's how it's going in there. And I only can imagine how bad it is in there. Like I said, while in there, the medical staff was it was really horrible.
Got you.
Oh, thank you so much. Everyone that does not know me, I am Charlene Walker, the Executive Director of Faith in New Jersey. And we thought when we started hearing all of the stories that are coming from those that are directly impacted, that are within our carceral system, because as we know, New Jersey, unfortunately, is a carceral state. We are surviving off of the bodies of Black and Brown people primarily across the state of New Jersey, either through our youth detention, through our immigration detention, or our typical carceral state, which is completely inhumane, especially in this time of a public crisis. So we decided to bring people together to tell their stories.
From inside. Go ahead, brother.
All right. First, I would like to start by saying that as of 6 p.m. this evening, everyone housed in the dormitory setting in East Jersey has been issued 2 masks. Now, I want to be clear that the issuance of these masks was not out of any altruism from the administration, nor the implementation of any safety measures from on the state level. You know, we were given these masks out of, actions by members of the inmate population that are considered essential, the kitchen workers who are tasked with feeding everyone inside this institution, and they walked off the job. So by them walking off the job, the administration decided finally to give us masks to people that, it's impossible for us in the dormitory setting. It's 80 people housed in this area. So in the average bed distance is maybe 4.5 feet. So since this pandemic began, we have been asking for, especially since the CDC recommendations about everybody wearing facial coverings. So no one in the inmate population goes home at night. So the only way for the COVID virus to get inside the institution is either from guards or civilian staff. So we always said that it was a bad idea to house all of the kitchen workers in one area. So despite that, our protest, they did it anyway. So now the kitchen workers now have to work around guards and civilian personnel. Then they leave their job. Now they aren't issued any masks. They were not issued any masks. So earlier today, one of the kitchen workers actually fell out and had to be rushed to the hospital. So they evacuated the kitchen, gave the members of the inmate population masks that were there. But when their shift was over, they told them that they couldn't keep the masks, that they had to throw the masks in the trash. So when they did that, all the kitchen workers were walked off the job. And nobody, everybody refused to serve the inmate population, to feed. So that would have made the staff have to serve everybody. So you got close to 1,800 people in there. So that was an untenable situation. So they came around and actually issued masks at 6 o'clock. So this is the first time, and we're the only ones that have masks, mind you. The rest of the population, they go without. And the only reason that they gave us masks was because, now those people that are housed on tour are at risk of contracting the virus and then bringing the virus back to the dormitory, to their housing unit. So now you potentially have 80 people that's at risk at any time. So, and that's just one incident. So almost 3 weeks ago now, we had a guard who is responsible for a maintenance crew. So they came here with that supervisor, and then the next day, that supervisor tested positive. So he hasn't been here since. It took them almost 2 weeks before they isolated his inmate detail. So now, mind you, these guys are housed in the dormitory setting. So they could have potentially exposed everybody up here. So those are just two of the things that we're dealing with right now. And we really, really need help in here. So
Go ahead.
yes.
Keep talking.
All right. So we hear, everybody, the governor and everyone else talking about a vulnerable population with the care centers and the veterans homes, etc. But everyone seems to be forgetting about the 19,000 people that's housed in these carceral institutions in New Jersey, in the state of New Jersey. So now they just created, if you show symptoms of if you have flu-like symptoms, they isolate you in a 2-down area. So now they built fake walls with plexiglass. The officers down there wear hazmat suits. So they isolate those guys in that area. If you have risk of being in contact with someone, civilian staff, or another inmate that may or may not be positive, they send you to another area. So they isolate you for 14 days or so from there. If you don't get worse or deteriorate, then they will send you back to the inmate, back into the population. So they did that to 2 inmates up here that were housed here in particular. One is in the hospital. He's in the hospital right now. So on 2 different occasions, this guy went to the medical staff. Like, I don't feel well. My head is light, etc. And they told him, you have an ear infection. You okay to go back to the unit. So he came back to the unit. 2 days later, they had to come up here and get him. We haven't seen him since. Another guy who happened to be on that repair detail that the officer tested positive for COVID, they came up here with masks, hazmat gear, disinfected his area, and we haven't seen him since. So we are exposed, and everyone is talking about, taking care of their vulnerable population, but what about us? We are part of that vulnerable population. It's not like we can go home every single day and isolate. We can't do that. So we just need, somebody to give our situation voice. And all we asking is, do we not have a right to dignity, equal dignity under the law? You don't have to care about the inmate population, but now you have guards that interact with us on every single day, and then they could potentially take that COVID virus home to their families. So now you get a surge in hospitalization and all that other stuff that comes with being positive for the virus.
So
it's really a dire situation.
So what is your ask? What do you want? What do you want us to help do?
Well, for one, the first thing is Governor Murphy just signed an executive order, right? And during that time, one of the reporters asked him about who would be affected by the executive order. So his immediate response was, if you have been convicted for a violent crime, you are excluded. And then he went to name 3 particular crimes, as an example. But what I'm saying is, you have people here. Now, when it's politically expedient, they laud, success stories. Guys that have gone through NJ STEP programs, for instance, which I am a graduate of, with honors, I might add. But because I have been convicted for a violent crime, I'm automatically excluded from that interested population. So I'm just one person. Now here it is, I haven't had a charge in 20 years. 20 years. I would be the example of what success looks like. Of a person who's participating in his own rehabilitation, that's doing everything that's being asked of him, programming, I'm doing everything. But because I'm convicted of a violent crime, I'm automatically excluded from participating in, those guys, that population that's being released based on his executive order. Like, I don't understand that. I don't understand that.
How much time have you served?
I've served, this year will be 30 years. 30 years. So, and they have a wealth of data, statistical data, that says, if a person is incarcerated, as his level of education increases, his risk for recidivism is reduced. So almost to the point where, particularly with the NJ STEP program, they have a recidivism rate of 1%. Less than 1%. And you're telling me that simply because I cannot mitigate the circumstances around my crime, no matter what I do, that will always remain the same. So because I'm convicted for a violent offense, I can't even be considered.
Do you think that COVID now becomes a death sentence, a potential death sentence towards you?
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
What can we do to help?
You tell me. Go ahead.
What can we do right now to keep COVID from being a death sentence to you?
Well, we need for someone to explain to the governor that he has 60 seconds remaining. He has a wealth of statistical data that shows that even though there are some, now I think that it should be on a case-by-case basis, that may be too cumbersome. But he can actually consider, like, okay, if you receive this amount of a level of education, whether it's a violent crime or you have 30 seconds remaining, we will consider you. So you may be able to petition the courts to gain access to programs and rehabilitation or reentry services that I am actually excluded from right now.
Okay. Thank you for sharing, brother. And we will definitely push this message, and we will get this message out to the right people and in our call of action. They heard live from you, and they just hung up. You heard directly from a brother that is currently incarcerated in the carceral state. This is not us just making this up. They're telling you exactly what's happening on the ground, and any questions or anything that you need to know, you can direct them to our group. We have those that are a part of our group that are directly in contact with them every day. It's even worse for the juveniles. They can't even call their parents. Their parents can't go see them. They can't do what needs to be done. And most of the juveniles that I'm talking about are not even adjudicated guilty yet. And yet they sit. And there's nobody speaking with them, let alone carrying their messages. And we have to begin to say that, why is this criminal justice process turning into a death sentence? And we have to do things to stop this. We can't continue to have this going on. And I'm just, to hear these stories and just coming from there, and just a matter of months to see how this turned on its head. That could have been me. And who would have spoke for me? Who would have spoke with me? Who would have gave me an opportunity to share exactly what's happening real time right now? And I think this is the first time we're probably hearing directly from those that are directly impacted with this COVID-19. They're dying in there, and nobody cares that can do something, but we care. That's why we're here. That's why we're here to share. We're here to make sure that we educate, we inform, we enlighten all those that can move. We're not looking for sympathy. We're looking for empathy. And it is my hope that in sharing what we're going through and what's happening with us, that this is a call to action. These are not people who were sentenced to death. The death penalty was abolished in New Jersey. And for us to sit by idly, we must get engaged, because this could happen to any one of us, any one of our families. And I know it's sweeping across the state. There's 19,000 families that are directly impacted by this. And we need to do something.
So can I also add that right now, the way they're testing the corrections officers that are coming in is by doing a temperature check. But what we know now is that many people come in asymptomatic, right?
Right.
So one of our calls of action is to discuss that it's not just, I know that COVID testing is not, available to everybody, but it is available to first responders. And because corrections officers are almost like first responders, because they have to work regardless, and they're going in and out. So I know you said the 19,000 families, it's even more than that, right? It's all
Yes,
because
yes.
they're coming back out in general population. And this is a public health tragedy for all of us. So it's not just people that are in, maybe sometimes people, disassociate because, hey, well, they're inside and we're outside, but they're still coming in and out, and we're still all affected by it. They had a CEO that died last week, right?
Yes.
So, and I was looking at the stats. If you guys want to look up the stats, they're updating it. I saw in Northern State, they have 53 COs that tested positive. In every facility, they had a CO that tested positive, and only because they got tested. So you already know if they got tested, they probably had a fever or they showed symptoms. So we don't know how many didn't get tested and are walking around like nothing, So, this is a public, and I see that Tracy, you wrote something, and I think, Tracy, you're a nurse, right? So I don't know if you want to add to the conversation, like as far as the health practices of what you think, what you would suggest.
So you're absolutely right. They're asymptomatic for that 10 to 14 day window. So by the time the temperature of whoever is being checked is elevated, you don't know how many people that they've exposed to what's already been going on with them. And this is the issue that I've been having with the JJC, reaching out to them to find out, are you testing the young people? From an infection control standpoint, they also need to be making sure that they have an independent observer come in and observe what is actually being done in their day-to-day practices. It's very clear that there's not enough cleanliness, there's not enough distancing, and that people are being exposed in higher numbers than we're being reported. So I'm just really, really disgusted by the fact that we are having more conversations. I'm glad we're having the conversations, but the action has got to be consistent and the message has to be concise. They have got to make sure that they test everybody in this vulnerable population, because the risk is incredibly too great. It is a death sentence if it continues to go on the way that it's gone. We heard what the brother had to say, right? But we already knew that this was more than likely the case. So, getting the families involved is going to be really, really important. Making sure that Governor Murphy knows the actual numbers of who we have inside and the comorbidities. And even though I work heavily with the young people and the families of those young people, I'm concerned about our elders too that are now caught up, because you know they have a lot of comorbidities and they will die as a result of exposure to this virus. And the lack of what I'm hearing, real medical care inside, especially at Edna Mahan, I'm thoroughly disgusted. Something has got to be done.
So Anton, can you go over the Dignity Act so everybody understands that this is a law that was already signed in January?
On January 9th, 2020. This law provides critical corrections oversights, trauma-informed care, essential healthcare products, and several other provisions. And what was the point of this was, at one time they were the dignity for people who were sick in vulnerable populations, especially pregnant women that were being shackled. They were put in isolated confinement while they were pregnant and things like that. But what the Dignity Act does, it stopped all of that. But what it also did was it created oversight, where it wasn't just legislation without oversight in the implementation, to where the nurse Tracy just talked about. They go inside. They make sure that the things that need to be done medically, trauma-informed care, that is actually being done and it's being recorded. It's being reported. And they have to come back out every 6 months to a year and say what's actually happening, what's going on. It's not, this piece of legislation is right for COVID-19 to make sure that these brothers and sisters and our youth are getting the necessary things that they need, that otherwise there would be no oversight. We have to use the Dignity for Incarcerated Caretakers Parents Act to implement what we're going to do in our call of action. We already have the legislation in place. So it's just about now, who do we get to go in? Who do we nominate to go in? Who do we push to have to monitor what's actually happening? He signed it January 9th. And you don't see this being implemented right now to oversee what's happening with COVID-19, what's happening for any of the things that whatever it may be. It's just a dragging of the feet. Now we have to put their feet to the fire and say, listen, we need people to go in to find out if this stuff is going on and that they're getting the proper medical care. One of the things that we have to understand is there's a copay. There's a $5 copay, and then there's a $1 medical fee for any medication that is implemented as a result of this. So to get a Tylenol, to get Motrin, whatever the case may be, there's $1. And it's $5 whether you see a nurse or a doctor, or whether you see nobody, just to go down there to put on the sick call. And then they schedule you when they see fit. But you're going to pay that $5. And if you get any medication prescribed, you're going to pay $6. And as many times you go down there, you're going to pay. We have to stop that. We really have to stop that.
Yeah, so we're gonna call forward, I believe Reverend Vicar Eric Kussman is going to go over some of our calls to action. We've already put the link inside of the chat box. Vicar Eric,
Yep.
share a little bit of your story as well as call to action.
Yep. I just want to let you know I'm Vicar Eric Kussman. I serve St. Bartholomew's Lutheran Church in Trenton, New Jersey. Just to give you a bit of my quick history, just hearing that phone call count down to 60 seconds to 30 seconds brings me a lot of flashbacks. You know, I served also 12 years incarcerated in New Jersey state prisons from Bordentown to Bayside. I was released in 2013, just got off parole 2 years ago. So when you talk about medical conditions and just the way things are ran in there, what everybody's telling you is 100% correct, if not worse. You know, it all depends if even the corrections officers like you to go see the medical people. You know, so I could only imagine with the trauma that people are going through now. People brought up Edna McMahon. As you see, they're also in the news again for their trauma and sexual abuse of the female inmates. There was a story that broke today. I don't know if anybody saw that. Because if you remember a little while ago, they swept it under the rug, kind of. There was a big thing. Officers got arrested. but it found out Murphy didn't do anything. So it was business as usual after the press went away. So that's something for us to look into, to add on top of all of this. But I'm going to go over the call of action with everybody. Y'all ready? Yeah, there's some smiling faces. Amen. We're asking Governor Murphy for, one, a transparent, uniform model and plan for execution to prevent the continued spread of COVID-19 throughout the Department of Corrections. Number two, public health education by professional healthcare experts for corrections officers to understand the importance of implementing proper measures using science to prevent the continued spread of COVID-19. Waive medical co-pays for the incarcerated during COVID-19 pandemic so that inmates can afford medicine to address their symptoms. Number four, increase the access to hygiene products like soap, sanitizers, and masks. Number five, test correction officers and civilian employees for COVID-19, as you do with first responders. We know that temperature checks are useless because you can be asymptomatic and still spread the virus. Number six, implement a community-based civilian board to provide critical corrections oversight to ensure that all measures for prevention and intervention are being implemented in each facility. Now, I know, as Charlene said, please check the chat box at the bottom and Facebook for details for the email link that's being sent out. But I can't stress the importance of this because people that are incarcerated are those that are living on the fringe of society. They're the marginalized and the oppressed. And people are bringing up people that were doing violent crimes, violent offenders. I'm a violent offender myself. Trust me, the road to a pathway to loosen that bonds is almost impossible because it always pops up. You know, you're not eligible for certain grants. You can't get this. You're treated as you're subhuman in a sense. You know, it's only by the grace of God and a great community around me that I am where I am now. So, and I think that's the importance of this group here. I see 40 people on here now. Us 40 people can help rebuild people. We could be that support network for people, especially in times of crisis. They don't have a voice. They speak up. You know, we heard from the brother on the phone who's down in Eastern. If it gets out that he was on or even making that known, they'll make his life a living nightmare worse than it is now. And me doing time down in Bayside State Prison, if anybody knows anything about Bayside, they hurt people down there. You know, you speak up against injustice, they'll break your legs, they'll break your arms. That's what corrections officers do. People are like, well, they're not all that bad. And I've said, okay, well, show me a good one. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eric, for your words and input and for sharing part of your story. Also, I wanted to bring up to everyone, I wanted to go on and bring up as to what else can you do. So we have this call to action where it's a click for call to action, which is the email. There's a couple of things that I think that we need at this time. We could use attorneys to advise with Faith in New Jersey on how we can better move to support our individuals that are desperately in need of God's love and care right now. Also, we recently launched through our Live Free campaign something called Masks for the People. And what Masks for the People is, it's a humanitarian effort to address the lack of preventative care and resources being made available to our loved ones in jails, urban neighborhoods, and poor and rural communities. We are putting together kits, which are masks, sanitizer, garments, and PPP and other things, and we are putting them into the prisons, and we are putting them on the ground in our urban communities that have been forgotten about during this time of COVID. We're also giving these materials to violence interrupters that are out there taking care of our communities. So please, I will share that link on our Facebook as well, that if you can give, please give. In order to help us, because we understand in community that is where we are able to heal each other and be the beloved community that we are trying to build. It is our belief, my belief solely, especially, that we do not need to go back to where we were before COVID happened. All it has showed us is that everything is amplified. Every inequity, racial disparity, economic disparity is on full display for all to see. It is our job as people that care about all of God's children to make sure that we make change that sticks and that is more than just a Band-Aid for a temporary situation. We are aiming to decarcerate, and we are aiming to make sure that people have a path to redemption, because all of us make mistakes. And that is what is needed within this beloved community. I know that I will share the links. Please check our Facebook, as well as I'm going to put them in the chat. And I think that we were going to move towards our closing. We are happy that everyone has come, and we were going to move on to Reverend Heard. Was there anybody else that we had anything left out that needed to add?
Charlene, can you just like, there's people that put stuff in the chat room, like chat group, like things like people have data that they would like to add as contextual data, right? Like research. I saw somebody ask if there's like links for donations, and those kind of things. So I don't know if there could be, if there's going to be email link or anything like that, so that people can continue to communicate after all of this.
Yes, we will have an email link. And then also next week, Faith in New Jersey will be having all of our county meetings where we are organizing, because there are things that can be done on our state level, but there are things that are hyper localized that can be done. So we want to make sure that we all come together, and we also want to make sure that the people that need to lead this are those that are impacted. They are the ones that know best as to what's going on. And guess what? I believe that they are truly the best policymakers that should be taking the charge for this. So we do have, those are the voices that we want at the table, and we want everybody else to come together, listen, and have them lead. I think the other thing was, I am going to send out for everybody that has asked for links. We are going to send emails because there was a registration process. So we will send emails out for all the links for donations, follow up, and to get on the email list as far as upcoming meetings. I know that Tarika said that she did have some data, but I believe it wasn't ready until next week in order to be released. So I'm hoping that we will link up and have a conversation and we can share more. Does that work? And thank you so much, Lisa, for all of your work. Lisa is from, she didn't even credential herself or talk about where she's from because she's so modest. But from Reimagining Justice, you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Hi everyone. So a lot of my passion behind this is because I taught inside, and I'm getting a lot of messages from my students that are inside and students that have come home recently. Jason, who's the co-founder of Reimagining Justice, he is also somebody that's been directly impacted. We do a lot of work around looking at violence as a public health problem and complex trauma and understanding trauma. So Jason, do you want to add something before we end? Can you hear me? I don't know if he could, but anyway, so basically this is very, very important to me because I really didn't know what to do when I was getting these messages. So I reached out to Charlene and I reached out.
My fault. Go ahead.
Okay. And I reached out to Tracy and everyone else. I reached out to Anton and I said, let's try to get this out there, because this week alone, they weren't able to take a shower for a week. No soap, no nothing. And I didn't want to wait anymore until we could, I felt like we had to do something to push this forward. So Jason, do you want to words?
No, I mean, listen, no, the only thing, I mean, y'all said everything that can be said, you know me. I'm not sure if y'all going to continue this on, just continuing like to strategize and plot and plan, moving forward next time we go on and everything like that. But the only thing I could say in general is we don't want nobody to die. You know what I'm saying? Like that goes for the COs, that goes for the prison guards, that goes for the civilians that go in there to work. You know what I mean? No matter how we possibly may have been treated when we was in there. You know what I mean? I know I wasn't the nicest of people when I was out here. You know what I mean? So I just want them all to come home, and I don't want them to start, thinking that we bashing everybody. Even though some things need to be rectified. I want to come to whatever type of agreement or some type of middle ground where, you know what I'm saying, even if they're not giving us all, give them men and women and them babies in there something, you know what I mean, to survive, because that's all prison is survival. You know what I mean? So I know we're gonna get shortchanged. You know what I mean? But for the most part, we need to survive.
So we have Reverend Hurd that will be giving our closing reflection on this moment that I know probably is a little heavy. I know I'm going to carry this for a while with me, always, and I hope that our hearts are forever changed. Reverend Hurd, are you ready?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Charlene,
Yes.
for your leadership. Thanks, Brendan, for your leadership, and all of those who have shared your stories and your wisdom and your fervor tonight in this move that I believe is a divine move in this time. I wanted to share with you, as some of us talked this morning in the meeting, and you were looking for a theological construct or a faith statement to support the work that we're undertaking. And I was reminded of a little children's song that we grew up singing in church. Jesus loves the little children of the world, red, brown, yellow, black, and white, all are precious in God's sight. And the song wasn't just about adolescents or infants or children. It was all of God's creation that was precious to God. And someone asked, one of the sisters asked about a scripture in Matthew that talked about the least of these. And it was Matthew chapter 25. And this is the final judgment. When those were asked, for those who visited those in prison, those who fed the hungry, those who clothed the naked, they would be rewarded. And the question was asked, when did we do those things? And the answer was, when you did it to the least of these, you've done it also to me. And so it's from that theological perspective that all are precious in God's sight, that we do this work and undertake this work. So with that said, let us look to the Lord in prayer. Holy, loving, merciful, all-wise creator, sustainer God, we gather in this peculiar, unprecedented time in our world and in our history to strategically prepare and carry out a work on behalf of those whom some in society would deem the least of these, the incarcerated, the immigrant and their families, those in detention centers, the marginalized, those in vulnerable communities, and those who suffer in any way from this global pandemic. Our faith tells us that all in your creation are precious in your sight, so no one is the least of these in this world. So in the Old Testament prophetic tradition of speaking truth to power, and the New Testament tradition of transformation and liberation, equity and community, we endeavor as communities and leaders of faith to advocate and to agitate for those who cannot always speak for themselves. Lord, unite us in your love, endow us with your power, consecrate our resources and networks to accomplish a liberating, healing work in our communities, in this state, and even in our nation. Thank you for the opportunity to serve you and to serve your people as beloved community. So embolden us, enlighten us, incite us, inspire us as we organize and strategize, all to your glory. Amen.
Thank you so much for that, being led in your faith tradition. Once again, everyone, please follow Faith in New Jersey. We will send out emails for follow-up. And thank you for joining us. And hopefully you will join us on this long walk as we fight for justice. Goodbye, everyone.